Well, welcome back to the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. Simone and Brian, they're back in studio. Annette and I are here, and we have another team member who's also here at Warplane, Emily Vukovic. Where are you, Emily?
Good morning, you guys. I'm just over here. You can't see me? This place is incredible, and I'm so glad that we're here for this Remembrance Day. And speaking of Remembrance Day, there are so many historical war sites you can visit in Ontario, and for today, I got to visit the home in Guelph, Ontario of the man who wrote in Flanders Fields. The John McCrae House, located in Guelph, Ontario, is a National Historic Site dedicated to the life and legacy of Lieutenant John McCrae, the celebrated Canadian poet, soldier, and physician, best known, of course, for his iconic World War I poem, In Flanders Fields. We are now being joined by Jagarup to give us a brief overview of John McCrae's medical and military history. Thank you so much for having us today.
You're welcome. It's an absolute pleasure.
He was quite an extraordinary person, a wonderful surgeon, but thought of himself a little bit more as a soldier from the impression I'm getting from being in here.
Right, and I think it's very interesting that John McCrae is both of those things, right? So this prominent and dedicated military figure, but at the same time, this celebrated doctor, poet, and artist. And personally, for me, that's what really fascinates me about this person, is that nuance and the complexity of being both of those things, equal part soldier, equal part healer, I would say. So, I mean, if we take a snapshot of, say, his military career, he was born into a military family, he was involved in the military from youth, he joined the Highland Cadets at the tender age of 14. Wow. And continued, in fact, he was awarded the best cadet in the province, I believe, and he continued to be involved in the military, joining the Guelph Field Artillery, initially in the unit that his father commanded. Wow. And continued on with his connection with the military. In 1899, excuse me, in 1899, he volunteered for active service in the South African War, and he returned to Canada with the Queen South Africa Medal, and of course 14 years later he returned to the battlefield as part of the First World War efforts, this time as a medical officer and a major of the 1st Brigade of the Canadian Field Artillery. Wow. But then equally, and it's very interesting to me, that somehow he managed to transcend what we see, this picture painted as a celebrated soldier, a war hero, yet he goes beyond that, because he's also a celebrated healer, or let me define what I mean by healer, in that he's a physician, a surgeon, he's dedicated to this, to his medical practice both on and off the battlefield. But then he's also this sensitive poet and this artist, and I feel that's very healing. He maybe offered himself this catharsis through his work to heal, but also a reminder to a world that needed to remember that we need not have these such wars again. Yeah,
I mean, such a remarkable, unique individual. We have so much more coming up from John McCrae House here in Guelph on Morning Live. Make sure you don't go anywhere. John McCrae began writing poetry when he was at the University of Guelph, and he had over 16 poems and short stories published in various magazines. Here we learn a little bit more about his love for writing. Welcome back to McCrae House. We're now being joined by Don Owen to talk about McCrae's artistic practices, of which there are so many, and we were just talking off camera. I had no idea that he was such a prolific artist in so many ways.
Absolutely. So Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae both drew and wrote throughout his lifetime. He, even as a young person, as he traveled the world, as he encountered people in places that were new to him, he had a keen curiosity, a sense of interest, and was a dedicated sort of studier of his environment. So we see drawings, we see poems, we see stories, short stories, and letters that McCrae wrote and shared and published throughout his lifetime.
So what we're looking at here in this case, you've got a couple of, not so much originals, like a lot of them are reprinted, right? Because they can't withstand the light or the, environment to stay preserved on display, correct?
That's right. So we do have an original drawing in this case in front of us, and we do regularly change that drawing out so that we can not only show a breadth of McCrae's artistry, but also preserve the original drawings correctly, because we want, of course, them to survive for a lot longer than today.
Yeah.
You will see many of his drawings in the museum shown in reproduction. I would also encourage folks who are interested to learn more about him as an artist to go to the Guelph Civic Museum's online collection. And I have an example here of one of McCrae's sketches that is visible online. And this is actually quite special because although it comes from about 1896, McCrae was at this time making a drawing of poppies.
Before the war even started.
Long before the First World War and long before the poppy became an emblem of remembrance.
Right. Now he did a lot of drawing and like in that kind of sense before the war, is that correct?
He did, yes. Actually, he sort of drew more prolifically earlier in his lifetime. We can guess as to why he was more interested in that kind of tool of expression. I think it was very natural to him. As I said, he was a keen observer of his environment, so we see lots of landscapes, we see detailed drawings of florals and forestry scenes, long vistas as well. And I actually think, and we do see him drawing some figures. We do have some life drawings as well, but I think he was really attuned to his environment, and that's where he spent most of his drawing efforts.
Okay, well, thank you so much for chatting with us today. Our morning live coverage of John McCrae's house here in Guelph continues. Coming up. Interestingly enough, in Flanders Fields was published in December 1915 in British Punch magazine on like the bottom left page as kind of like a filler piece, but it has reached worldwide status since. Let's head back to John McCrae House to find out more. The incredible life of John McCrae, renowned physician, soldier, and poet, has left a distinct imprint all over the world. I love, Tammy, that people can come here, they can check out the museum, and then they can share their thoughts. And you're international. It's a big deal.
Well, John McCrae is international. Yeah, Guelph is so proud to be the home of Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, and it is really heartwarming how the impact he's had around the world and still has today. So we do receive visitors from around the world, from France and Belgium and Scotland and England, and they come here. They often come specific to visit this site as a place of contemplation and remembrance and to pay their respects.
Wow.
You know, his poem in Flanders Fields inspired the use of the poppy as a symbol of remembrance,
of course,
which is consistent around the world. And you know, we have through John McCrae's legacy have been able to develop partnerships with organizations and people around the world so that we can continue to explore, understand, and share his story. So we work closely with the Flanders Fields Museum in Belgium. We have a school teacher in France, an English teacher who teaches her students in Flanders Fields each year.
I love that.
And then they send us their reflections and their artwork.
So beautiful.
So it's really beautiful, the legacy that John McCrae has, and we look forward. We have been to Europe
I was
twice
just about to say,
now.
so are you going back? Like, what are the plans for the future?
We are going back in the spring to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and we'll be taking that time to explore with our partners over there the impact on war on the ground there, how it's impacted Canada to this day. And then, of course, to explore John McCrae's story, to pay respects at his gravesite. So we'll be there next end of April, early May, with a group of about 30 people.
Wow, and is this kind of something that you plan yearly?
This is the third time we've done a group tour, a group remembrance tour. So first was in 2018, then 2022, and then next year to commemorate the anniversary of the end of the Second World War.
That's incredible. So if you do come to John McCrae House here in Guelph, you can also share your thoughts about legacy. You can read other people's messages. You can share your thoughts about the experience at McCrae House. A really great experience. Thanks so much, Tammy, for having us. There's so much more coming from Guelph on Morning Live. Make sure you stay with us.
Let this come into being. Shalom, salam, 2 words, 1 aim. For if you let me live in peace, I will do the same. Shalom, salam, 2 words, 1 meaning. I wish you peace. Let this come into being. Shalom, salam, 2 words, 1 aim. For if you let me live in peace, I will do the same. I will do the same.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are back here at McCrae House, and that was one of your originals from the backyard musical theater that you do here. Tell me about that.
Well, this past August, I was invited by the folks here at McCrae House to put on a presentation that I called War and Peace, Songs and Monologues. And the idea about it was quite simple. Inspired by this place and by the context of McCrae's poem, I wanted to examine for myself, why do we have war? What are the root causes of war? Is peace even achievable? What are the mechanisms by which we would achieve peace? And so over the course of that time, the audience and I took a 90-minute journey through words and music. I performed a number of songs that were, in my mind, some of the greatest songs of the 20th century, written on the subject of war and peace, like John Lennon's Imagine,
beautiful.
and Bob Marley's War, and a bunch of pieces in between, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, all of these songs threaded together by questions I was asking and research that I did by contemporary historians and authors talking about war and peace.
And I'm sure within that you came to find a broader perspective and knowledge of all of these songs and what they could subjectively mean to everybody.
Absolutely. The songs, however, felt like, they're so familiar to so many of us, especially people of a certain generation. But I don't necessarily know that we think about all of the underlying things that would have inspired those songs. The reality is, the research tells us that war is as old as humanity itself. And for reasons which still seem impenetrable, we have an inability to overcome it, or so we have been led to believe. But the research also led me to understand that there are mechanisms by which peace could be achieved. Like, it's something that we think of as almost impossible. But there is a path that can be forged, and we all can play a role in it.
Well, it's nice that you are certainly influencing people to think about the role that they can each individually play. Now, I hear you also do a wonderful rendition of the poem, Flanders Fields.
Well, it's not my own rendition.
No.
It's a rendition by Robert
Can we hear a little?
But we can, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Here we go. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks so bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid.
Back at the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, we've got a couple of volunteers working on the Avenger right now. We're going to head back to John McCrae House to see what it's like to transcribe his letters. Bev is joining me now, and you are the former curator of Guelph Museums and is now spending time transcribing John McCrae's letters. What has it been like for you to get to know someone so intimately in such an interesting way.
Oh my goodness, this has been a dream come true to transcribe these letters, because I've had so many aha moments.
Yeah.
All of a sudden something clicks and makes sense, and what happens then, we do more research and then go down a rabbit hole and find out even more research, find new images about McCrae, because more and more people are digitizing their collections.
Right.
And we can search out images, and I do have help doing this. Linda Granfield is helping me. So I transcribe the letters and then look up any information about them, do the research, and I try to cross-reference to the collection as well.
Oh, I suppose you kind of have to go back and kind of check and make sure that the timeline is matching up.
And then I want to have that reference to the collection, because McCrae had a number of scrapbooks. So all of a sudden he'll make reference to being in Hyde Park in Toronto, getting his picture taken, and there's the picture in the scrapbook.
Wow.
So I cross-reference that to make sure that that can happen, because I have all this McCrae information in my head, and I want to get it on paper for other people.
What's it like when you kind of have one of those aha moments? Are you thinking, oh, this is such a great discovery?
Well, I squeal, actually. And then I email Linda right away.
Yeah, of course.
You're not going to believe what I just found.
Yeah.
Especially there was a new picture we found, and he went to Woods Hole, Massachusetts for a summer school project, and he studied the sea cucumber. But anyways.
Interesting.
Very interesting. But this was a state-of-the-art facility at the time doing research on marine animals, right?
Okay.
So, and they thought it would be good for him to get his fellowship in biology to take this course. So sure enough, they documented the students in the class, and I'm going down I didn't even have to look at the name plates, because I just went down and it's McCrae, it's a new photograph.
Oh,
yeah.
That is so remarkable. Now, how long have you been transcribing the letters for?
Well, I retired in 2017.
And you're still doing it?
I'm still doing it. But I'm on March 1905. I didn't do them in order. So I'm on March 1905, so I just have to end out the year, and I'll have them all transcribed. Not completely all documented yet, but all transcribed.
Well, that is wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be back with Bev. She's got a little bit of myth-busting to do about John McCrae, so make sure you stay with us. Lots more from McCrae House in Guelph on Morning Live. Not everything you read is true, and we're finding that out about John McCrae himself. Chatting with Bev again, we're myth-busting. We're finding out some facts of things that were true and were not so true. Tell me about this.
Well, John McCrae was supposedly had a girlfriend named Alice, and she died of typhoid fever, and he was devastated, and he was in grief for the rest of his life, and that's why he never married. That's some of the myths that are around this.
So that's not true?
No.
There was no girlfriend?
Well, there was one letter about Alice to his mom, and he was devastated that she did die, but she was a sister of a classmate.
Oh.
And
not a
he does in the letter say our girlfriend.
Oh.
But girlfriend,
Girlfriend.
doesn't mean that like it means today.
Intimate.
That's correct.
Interesting.
That's correct.
Okay.
And he did take Tennyson's poem In Memoriam and played with the wording and stuck in girlfriend instead of Alfred, I think was the name.
Right.
But he did a little postscript the next morning, said, please ignore the letter. Don't read it out loud at home. I'm not sure how it will come off. One must get back to work. And that was the end. So there wasn't really a girlfriend.
Okay.
Plus, 2 weeks before, he was at a social, a YMCA social, meeting girls.
Oh, and there was only 10 of them and 70 men.
And he met them all.
What a time. What a time. Okay. What's going on here?
So this is a big one. This is, McCrae was said to be the brigade surgeon and second in command when he signed up for the First World War.
Okay.
The brigade surgeon title was abolished from the military in 1898.
Oh.
So he would have been the medical officer. Not the brigade surgeon, and there's no way he would be second command because he's been a doctor. He's been out of the military.
I was just about to say, so he was in the military in South Africa, but then he was out of the military for a long period of time before going back, so there's no way he would have reached that rank without even being there.
That's correct. And there was somebody in the brigade that had far more military experience, was active in the military. That would be Lieutenant Colonel William Dodds, and he would have been the second in command if there was such a thing.
So a lot of these myths have been documented on certain letters or specials or something along those
in
lines.
books and that sort of thing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And another one to go with the military is he never did belong to the Queen's Own Rifles out of Toronto.
Oh.
He stayed as a member here of the
In
number
Guelph.
2 battery, and they quite often, actually, the Queen's Own Rifles owned him for a bit, but now they realize that he wasn't a member because he never wrote home about it, and he's not in any of their nominal roles as a member.
Okay. Anything else? Any other myths that we need to bust?
If he has a middle name, don't. He doesn't have a middle name.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't have middle names, right?
Right.
And a lot of us do that we don't love.
Yeah.
So maybe he got away with it.
Yeah.
You know, he got lucky.
But sometimes they put a middle name with him. John Alexander McCrae.
Really?
He does not have a middle name.
Huh.
Neither does his brother Tom.
Okay, so you even know the brother.
Yep.
Bev's amazing. She knows so much information about this man. A wonderful and fascinating man he was. Thank you so much for having us
My
here
pleasure.
at the museum. We are in Guelph at the McCrae House. If you want more information, you can go to the Guelph Museum website. And of course, all the information will be on our website as well at chch.com.